Today on the new Design for Living, we are going to talk about the power of anger. Because if you're new to the show, first of all, welcome. The new Design for Living show is all about redesigning society. It's all about using radical imagination to redesign how we live, how we love, and how we treat each other. It's all encompassing. It's a vision. It's in part not just societal infrastructure, but there is some spiritual architecture in here. And the spiritual architecture of the new Design for Living also has scientific proof. The interconnectivity of all life. It is a powerful vision because it comes out of our belief in that, in oneness. And it is not for everyone. However, it is for me. And maybe it's for you. Maybe you've never heard of it. And today you're going to learn a little bit more about what this is all about. And I wanted to address anger today because I am feeling it. And I want to lash out. And that's what happens when anger is unexpressed or when we don't have the opportunity to do that in a way that's healthy. In the old design model, anger, at least in my experience, was repressed, or it was just held for the few people who were allowed to express it while the rest of us, swept it under the proverbial rug until the rug had quite the bump and you'd trip over it because there were so many people sweeping so much anger under the rug. Well, we don't do that. In the new Design for Living, we understand that anger is a sign, a symptom, a byproduct of something that is not in alignment with the principles, with the values, with the vision that is the new Design for Living. I want to use some time to address this anger, this rage, and how livid so many are today in light of the vote that happened yesterday. And then we're going to do what we always do in the new Design for Living. We're going to express. We're going to stretch the canvas wide enough to be real. We're not going to do any bypassing. And then when we clear it, when we clear our hearts and our minds of that which has oftentimes felt unbearable to hold, to process, once we get through that and we have more clarity or we have more space or we're just a little bit calmer and we can think more clearly, we're going to use that imagination, that great gift that we have been given, to remember that we are creators. In the new design model, we embrace, we understand, we've been educated, we know how life works. We know how to work with it. We know that we have creative power. This is the great gift that we have been given. How are we using it? And if we ever wanted an opportunity to play in the playground of creativity, if you ever wanted to put down the hat, the character that wears the hat, a victim, and step into your new character as the one with the creative power, not just for your own mind, your own heart, your own life. Once you get that all lined up, or at least once you begin to address that in a way that begins to sort things out for you personally, then you get to turn outward and say, all right, now what do we do? Because you know what they say, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. We don't have that consciousness in the new Design for Living. And if you are new to this ideal, if you are new to the show and the vision that I'm talking about, know with me that this is all happening in real time. I don't have a booklet that I can give you that says, here, follow these instructions and all will be well. Because that's not what this moment is calling for. This moment is calling for us to be awake, aware, and alive. This moment is calling on us to be mature. This moment is calling on us to up-level our maturity, because really America has been living in the life of an adolescent for quite some time. where the few have been the adults, but the majority, to a great degree, have not. And so here we are, needing to wake up, needing to grow up, and needing to express what it is that we are feeling about what is happening. Now, again, phone lines are open for you, 907-222-1061. I personally had to reach out to my dear friend, my mentor, and one of the wiser people that I know who also is a broadcaster, Steve Heimel. And I often find myself benefiting from talking to people like Steve. I have a few others who can bring me back to my center when my emotions or my anger are swinging my pendulum, to the extreme. But I was feeling it. I'm not going to deny it. I had to understand what to do with it because I know better than to be overwhelmed by it in a way that causes me to sit out, causes me to, what's the word I'm thinking about? Collapse, so to speak, my creative power and my ability to respond to what's happening with bold, meaningful action. It's an interesting time. I could you go 40 days without getting paid? I mean, I did reach out to the TSA manager twice now. I understand they're busy because what I'm trying to do personally with my platforms is I'm trying to look at the needs that we are being exposed to as a pie and to have slices of the pie so that we can more easily digest and deal with the needs. Last week, I spent time talking about some of the ways that people are stepping up, and I'm happy to hear more about that today. 907-222-1061. I talked with Simone Stewart in the Valley, AAA's soul food restaurant, this beautiful person that herself in her own life was homeless and had food insecurity. And now she owns a restaurant and is choosing to feed people. Furloughed workers, the elderly, and of course, those who have been on SNAP benefit and no longer have that funding to feed themselves and their family. And as a result of her Facebook page and some of the interviews she's doing, including the one last Monday, people are responding now. I think the most recent company I saw was the Alaska Mushroom Company that has just been donating crates of fresh mushrooms locally grown to her. And she talked about using it for stir fries and creating chicken wings. This is what the new Design for Living is all about, that eventually we want to fan the flames of what is working, what people are doing, where the solutions are. However, today, there is a little bit of space for just this feeling that is certainly settling in my own heart. I know enough about myself and what works for me and what doesn't work for me, how much I can handle and when I'm stretched beyond my limit, not in a good way, but in a way where I'm heading towards overwhelm, and breakdown. And yet, life these days is doing just that. I know I'm not alone. I've got multiple people, very, very close people in my life that are dealing with significant medical issues. And now we're looking at the loss of medical insurance for, I think, 15 million Americans? What the hell is that going to mean? I mean, the system is already overwhelmed. It's just incredible. I mean, thank goodness I'm with people and we are able to be hands-on, trading shifts and showing up for the quote-unquote patient, but the majority of the people don't have that experience, either because their loved ones simply can't afford the time or they just don't have that kind of a support system. But I don't know that I could go 40 days without pay, especially if I had a family, and yet I think about these people, these TSA workers. I think about the stress that they must be feeling. What if I was to leave my job because I'm not getting paid? The idea that my work is part of a system, an intricate infrastructure that millions of Americans are using. However, we have to be real about travel. We have to be real about what's happening or not. In the new Design for Living, we are real. We want to take a really close look at this. We want to practice being more comfortable sitting in the discomfort of what is going on so we can be in the question. Not because we expect an answer, though answers are coming, solutions are arriving, but we also practice just living in the question, because when you can live in uncertainty, when you can allow yourself to accept how uncomfortable you feel, living in uncertainty, living in chaos, living in confusion, that becomes a fertile field of information. And these are some of the things I have come to experience and I have been sharing for many years now, because society's version of change, confusion, uncertainty, and chaos has caused us to resist change, has caused us to rush through the in-between, because we have to know. And when you have ended something and not yet begun something, most everyone around us, simply because they care, but are also in a trance of the value of knowing in the old design model, what happens? Questions. What are you doing? What are you going to do next? How long? It's just like, oh my gosh. So you feel the pressure of knowing. However, there's great value in practicing being uncomfortable in the discomfort of not knowing. And I have shared many things, and I'll share them again today. Real-time things I use all the time. I bring compassion to the one within me that is struggling. 9 times out of 10, it's my mind that's resisting what is. My mind that needs to know. It's like a pacifier. It's satiated by information and knowing. And when it doesn't know, it moves into the old programming of worry, fear, projection. Good news is today I've done enough of my own work to be aware of when that happens so that I can slip just outside of it, be aware of it, hold a space for it, respect it. I mean, it's happening in my experience. However, I don't necessarily want to identify myself as that thing. And so today, I want to address the anger and ultimately the power of anger, because the fuel that anger gives us, like many things in life, can be used for good or not so good. Sometimes I feel anger so intensely that it goes right to the tip of my fingers. And when that happens, I think, oh, this is why violence happens. This is why aggression with our hands happen, because the anger is trying to find a way out. It's very powerful. It's got a lot of energy in it. And so today it's my hope, maybe with your suggestions or your own practices, we can harness this fuel and direct it towards powerful and meaningful solutions for ourselves, our children, our family, and yes, our neighbors and our community. I almost named today's show The End of the Two-Party System, because it is over. Like I have been out of the two-party system for a while now. And I was thinking and I was meditating this morning on this idea of democracy, because the system is rigged. Now, is democracy, though, the system? Or did the system get created out of the ideal and the template and the values and the principles of democracy? And as such, as time has gone on and as people have been allowed to stay in office long enough to be corrupt and to misuse their position of representation of the people in a way that has benefited them and not their constituents, is it the system or is it democracy? I would say it's the system. I would say that the system is failing us, but democracy, not so much. And in the new design for living, believe me, we spend a lot of time talking about government and politics and how is it that we want to reshape it? Can we reshape it? If democracy survives this and has a future because we decide that it does and we create it, what does it look like? If the power is in us, they say it is, we the people. If we are democracy, then this would be the time to take some time and really think, how am I going to walk through the rest of this year? We have the holidays coming up. I'm not doing anything that would put any dollars in any of the pockets of any of the people that are intentionally bringing difficulty to the American people. I think that has been the hardest thing for me. I mean, I know it is. I don't think. I know it is. The hardest thing for me, and maybe for you too, is just being able to mentally and emotionally and spiritually and physically accept the cruelty of it all. That really messes with me. And that's why I can't stay there too long, because it lets the air out of my tire. However, sometimes, like today and like the other night, when I just was in a heap about it, it's the cruelty. But again, I know personally how it's possible. Because when you are not connected to source, and for me, source is love. I don't use the word God anymore. I haven't for years. To me, there is a love intelligence. To me, there absolutely is evidence of an intelligence that is fueled by love. And I always use the example of the rose. This love intelligence knew the rose. It knew the bloom. It knew the outcome. And yet, stuffed it into a bud, stuffed it into a seed, and then stuffed it into the soil for the sheer joy of our co-creative process with it, as well as the process of the bloom, the experience of the law of growth. Something cracks open that seed in the density of the dark dirt. I don't see what it is. You don't see what it is. Not seeing it doesn't stop us from shopping for the seeds and preparing the dirt and planting. We know that something we can't see cracks open the seed. There's some intelligence in the seed that draws it out up through the density of that dirt. Something is pulling it out, pulling it up till it breaks through the surface, and ta-da, the rose. So in the new design model, we spend time understanding how life works. And if your mind is quick to dismiss it because I use the word spiritual, I want to invite you today just to be curious about that. Just to be curious about the mind's resistance. Curiosity is a very big part of the new design for living because we are awakening to an old program so that we can become awake to co-creating and reimagining a new program. The old design for living comes out of the program of duality, comes out of the program of separation. Do you need any more evidence than today? We have people who are in our government, running our government into the ground, but nonetheless, they're running it, who live out of the belief of separation and duality. They have a belief of superiority. They truly live from the neck up. And this is what it looks like in an extreme, severe way. And yet, it's true in all of our lives. If you're living in separation, if you're living in duality, it means that we believe that I can do something or say something or even think and feel something about another and not be affected by it. However, that's not really how it works. We can be convinced that that's true. We can have evidence that that's true. But we really have a shift in consciousness in the new design model. Even if you're not vibing with the new design model or you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, that's okay. Because what you can understand is the interconnectivity of all life. You watch these documentaries about trees, about mushrooms. You know, there's so much information out there that absolutely establishes that back behind the appearance, there's just one thing happening, and it's happening in a myriad of ways. And that's the beauty and the mystical mystery that I feel is this life that we live. And so here we have a group of people It's a small group. See, that's the thing. Steve was saying this to me this morning. It's a small group of people. Yeah. A handful of people who are soulless, heartless, have an agenda built out of separation, have no problem hurting other people because in their minds, those are not really people. And if they are, they deserve it, right? Small amount of people. However, they have a lot of power, which is why so many people on social media and everywhere these days are helping us remember and ultimately buy into the belief, because it's true, that we have the power. We have the power to have dominion over our thinking. We have the power to have dominion over our emotions, not by force, but by authority. By recognizing, oh, yeah. Does it happen overnight? Hasn't for me. Is there instantaneous healings? I've seen it, but that's not necessarily what I'm talking about today, though. It's possible. Great. But there is a mindful choice involved. I truly believe that the power today is to really be willing to say, okay, what's not working for me anymore? What thinking doesn't work? What thought patterns don't work? What beliefs don't work? Be real, get real. What isn't working? And then, am I willing to accept that that's true? Am I willing now, in that acceptance, to allow myself to reimagine that belief, to reimagine that thought pattern, to reimagine my heart? Am I willing to look at stuck energy around forgiveness? Am I still thinking that somebody did something to me? Again, I'm not saying that people haven't been victimized. We have. People have. I have. However, I refuse to maintain the identity of victim because I cannot be powerful and I cannot live in my creative power if I'm in a victim position. Why? Because the victim believes that their power is outside of them. The victim believes that something happened to them. The victim believes that the perpetrator has the power. And so these are some of the things that the new design for living offers us to reconsider, to rework, to reimagine. So what do we have today? We have another small group of people, 8 Democrats, who sold out the American middle class, who sold out working Americans. I mean, here are these people in the FAA, in the TSA, all the government workers, 40 days. I mean, can you imagine being a TSA person and watching people have the affordability to travel while you're standing there helping them do just that, and you're not getting paid? Can you imagine what kind of consciousness it takes for somebody to feel the weight of the responsibility to put you and me before them, that they would go to work and not get paid? So that's why I've got a call out to the TSA manager. And if you can help me, please let me know right now, 907-222-1061, because again, back to the pie. Slices. One of the slices is FAA. Can they accept gifts? If they can accept gifts, what kind of gifts can they receive? Is there any way we can find who they are? Is there any way that through management I can do a pop-up fundraiser, which I love doing, and I think that it works for us to have, these pop-up moments. Okay, here's what we're doing for 24 to 48 hours. We're going to have a fundraiser, and these are the people that are getting the funds. That's one of the slices in my personal pie. We've got big things happening in our community. Melissa Mitchell, she and others are putting together this big event on Saturday. Lots of information online about it. A full-day event starting at 2 p.m., just a beautiful expression of bands and artists and musicians that are coming together, donating their time and their talent from 2 o'clock all the way till 11 o'clock. And it's just going to be an amazing opportunity. That slice of the pie, all that money going to Western Alaska and supporting our brothers and sisters from Western Alaska who went through that horrible typhoon. Hundreds, if not thousands, sent here to Anchorage. Now many of them in hotels and being housed I'm fortunate to work for a company here, locally grown restaurants, that had a diaper drive in their restaurants. I had the opportunity to go get all those donated items and bring them down to the location on First Avenue where the collection is happening. It's beautiful. It's organized. It's heart-centered. That's a slice right there. That's one avenue that you might want to travel down. Because I know the overwhelm is there. Everybody's asking for help. And so one of the things I'm trying to do to help myself and to help you is just to organize the help in slices so that maybe you can find one that vibes with you today. Maybe you're already doing something. Again, love to hear about it. 907-222-1061. If you are in the solution or you know somebody that's in the solution. So Saturday is a wonderful opportunity. Of course, my friend Duke Russell, who's now in a position where enough people have responded to the work that he is doing. And even in his absence, people went out and fed our brothers and sisters downtown. Because along with those who have been displaced by the typhoon in western Alaska, of course, we've got local individuals, families who are homeless for various reasons. And the beauty of what Duke is doing, or what many people are doing, is no judgment. However it is that you got there, they're hungry, and there is enough for everybody. See, that's the old design model. The old design model is based on scarcity. The old design model is based on not enoughness. Whether we ourselves feel like we are not enough, or whether we are in a trance of belief that there isn't enough. No, that's not true. There's more than enough. There's more than enough to feed people. There's more than enough. This is an abundant universe that we live in, with plenty to spare and to share. And I know lots of people that are just doing things right in their own backyard. That's another thing Steve Heim will talk to me about today. Just to remind ourselves, right in our own backyard, right there on our streets, how is your relationship with your neighbor? And here's the thing. I know a lot of times we are waiting for the other person to step up, or the mind says, well, why should I do it? Again, those are narratives that come out of separation. And that's okay. We got to be gentle with all this. It's been programmed in us for a very long time. However, the lights are shining bright on the darkness of that program. We're having no shortage of opportunity to gently, compassionately take a look at how it's affecting us. What would it be like, to knock on a neighbor's door or say hello every time you see somebody, or maybe have a few people over, or create a letter and mail it out to people. This is the moment where we are at. The power to solidify connection, solutions, and community right here in our own backyard. We have the resources within ourselves. We have the creative imagination within our own minds and our own hearts. Anchorage is an amazing community of connection, sharing, and resources. It is a real honor and privilege to live in a community where so many people are heart-centered. What can I do? How can I help? And so even though the system is failing us, we are not failing each other. That's where the power is. Next week, I'm going to have the Food Bank of Alaska on my show. Had a few, snafus, and wasn't possible today, but that's okay. Because I want to make sure we really understand how the Food Bank of Alaska works and the many organizations that they serve. So, for example, I saw that St. Francis, their food pantry was empty. They had a picture on Facebook last week. Now, yes, they can go shopping, so to speak, at the food bank. However, we want to try to keep the food bank as stocked as possible for individuals and families that go to the food bank directly to get food. When you go to Food Bank of Alaska and you see all the people, all the organizations, all the various entities that are supported by the food bank's resources, you realize, oh my gosh, I didn't realize. There's 30 people on that list, 30 nonprofits, 30, like I say, entities that are offshoots of the food bank feeding people. So by going directly to St. Francis, I think their address is on 20th Avenue. They're open, I forgot to write it down. I think it's 9 to 1 and then 4 to 5:30. By going directly to them with food donations, then we get to fill their shelves for the individuals and families that they are serving and not have to take supply from the food bank. The greater thing, or not really greater, the other thing, really, for me, is what we call the holidays. I know that we look at the holidays as this thing that if we can just keep doing it as we're doing it, it's going to, be medicine. And we've got kids and all of that. However, maybe not. I mean, can we really still go shopping at the major corporate outlets while Americans are working and not getting paid? Can we really still go out and buy plastic toys and wrap them in paper that just gets thrown? I mean, can we still keep doing that while over 15 million Americans are going to lose their health insurance now? Can we still validate that level of normalcy while so many Alaskans have been furloughed and are going hungry because their food stamps, the SNAP program, has been intentionally defunded? I mean, can you imagine? I mean, we don't have to imagine because we see it. And that's where the rage comes from, right? That they appealed the court's decision that said, you got to pay out SNAP. You got to fund the program. And what does this administration do? They push back and fight and say, no. Wow. Again, the cruelty. But yet, hey, we don't own this cruelty. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Look at what's been going on in Palestine, in Gaza. Well, look at that with the Palestinians being starved to death. Genocide right before our very eyes. So this is a massive moment to be organized, to have solutions, to have a plan with your kids, your partner, your friends, your coworker, your family, and to see what can we do different this year? What about small businesses? I thought about this today too. Oh yeah, during COVID, I think McDonald's stay open, but the gyms were forced to close. Interesting, right? And how many small businesses have had to shut their doors because of Amazon? I mean, seriously. I don't do Amazon. I won't do Amazon. Convenience at what cost? It's one thing to have something taken from us intentionally by those who have been elected. It's another thing to continue to participate in a system that is rigged against us, that's failing us. And so that is my hope today, is that in this discussion about the power of anger, we see it as fertilizer. We see it as fuel. We see it as an opportunity to go, okay, all right, what has to change? What can I do to support people who are going to work and not getting paid? They can't even get unemployment. Why is that? Because the government is shut down. Oh, yeah, forgot about that. Why is that? Oh, Epstein files. Oh, forgot about that too. Not so much. So, again, this is what's on the tip of my tongue. This is the new Design for Living. My name is Camille Conte. This is a show I started in January 20th, Inauguration Day, by intention, because the new Design for Living is, needed its own Inauguration Day. It is a vision for a new society, and we have nothing but contrast right now that is helping us decide exactly what kind of society we want, because what's going on right now is not the society that's really working for us anymore. I think, I think about the election, like the results from last Tuesday. I mean, that was a wallop. That was the American people coming out and saying, we're moving in this direction, and it was powerful. And they knew it was, the courts also pushing back and said, no, you can't do this. You need to do this. And so it's not so much that people didn't want the government shutdown to end, but for it to end having had no real purpose, for it to have even began in the first place. But this idea that this is happening is, like I said in the beginning of the show, just really a time of reckoning, really a time of reckoning. So for myself, how am I approaching the last weeks of this year? Well, like I said earlier, I've got some very special people in my life that are dealing with some medical issues right now. A lot of people are. And I'm just dedicating as much time as I have to be a presence in their lives, to be a medical advocate in their lives, to be a support to their families. Because the medical system, oh my gosh, I was at the Alaska Vascular and Heart Institute over there on Piper now 3 times in the last 2 weeks. Oh my gosh. All I could think about was, don't end up here, Camille. Do as much as you can, Camille, to be healthy, to have healthy habits, to do as much as I can to honor my body temple, to respect how it works and what it needs, and to give it that as much as I can, because you go into a place like that, you just see all these beautiful people, but so many elderly people as well, holding each other's hands, walkers, canes. I mean, wow. We had a remarkable experience. I mean, honestly, hats off to everybody in the medical field, in hospitals, in these facilities that are showing up, answering the phones, and doing their job. It's incredible. And in the midst of that, wow. Talk about cracks and things and people falling through it. You got to be patient. You got to just really be patient. You got to be persistent. Oh my goodness. It is quite the experience there. The other thing too, as I was saying earlier, is just this relationship to the holidays. I hope, I really do. I hope that you'll join me in the new design for the holidays. I hope you'll really explain to your kids why this is happening, because really it's for them. We want to give them the toys and the experience of the holidays because it's for them, but also at what cost, right? And I don't have children. I have nieces and nephews, and some of them have kids. But what a wonderful moment, really, to sit down with your children and to help them understand why things have to be different, and to continue to involve our young people in this movement of change, because they have things to say. My niece's beautiful daughter, so smart, so incredibly talented. She asked me the other night, do you think that the voting age should be 16 years and older? I had to think about that, and I did. I was quiet for a little bit. After about a minute, I said, I got to be honest. I don't think so. Not out of disrespect. However, more so out of my belief that there's still growth that happens for a 16-year-old, for the majority of 16-year-olds, that may not make it the right age for such a responsibility. I don't know. Others at the gathering said, oh yeah, they absolutely should vote at 16. That would be an interesting question to put out to you, 907-222-1061. I certainly feel that young people should have every opportunity to be involved. Maybe they should vote. I don't really know. I would be curious to know what they think and how they feel. Of course, the way society is set up, one of the arguments is, well, if that becomes standardized, then everything else becomes standardized. Then it would be, well, why can't I drink at 16? And why can't I do this at 16, right? So it's a precarious but important topic to discuss, but get them involved in civics, get them involved in debates, get them involved in policy discussions, create a space for them to be heard, to be respected, to have their concerns and the worries about their future be listened to by adults in respectful, supportive, and safe environments. Absolutely. I learn more from them than I do from people my age, because they've come into this experience with their own wisdom. And that's good news. That's good news that the next generation is more advanced than I was when I came into my parents' experience of life, and that they were more advanced than their parents. That's kind of ideally how it's supposed to work. I think it's called evolution. The evolution of consciousness, that each generation is imbued with more wisdom, more clarity, and a greater imagination, more solutions to design not just a future, but a now moment that works for them, that includes them. You know, you see these videos on social media, right, where young people are at these city councils speaking so articulately. They understand what's going on. You know, it's just an incredible time. There's so much opportunity. And that's where I want to end the show today. I want to end the show today on using the fuel of anger, using the fuel of rage in ways in which we alchemize that into fuel that empowers us. Alchemizing anger and the power and the fuel of it, alchemizing it into something bold and brave and community-driven. How can we take this day, this moment, this feeling of outrage for what we are witnessing? How do we take the experience of intentional cruelty against American citizens and alchemize it into gold? How do we take it and turn it into a power for good? That is the opportunity that is in front of us today. Many of us don't even need to look past our own families. Some of us are able to. A few more can look beyond their personal experience and turn towards the collective. Maybe you have a book club and you want to bring your book club to the Pioneer Home or the Senior Center and put attention on a group of people that are also dismissed, the elderly. That's why these programs that match elderly grandparents with younger kids, these are two outsourced groups of people. Maybe you have a knitting group. Maybe that group can spend some time knitting scarves and hats for the Covenant House, the kids that are down there. They've got their own needs as well for clothing, donations. There's always something, there's always a gift that we have individually that can be amplified for the greater good of all. I absolutely believe that. That's what this moment is for me. You know, one of my gifts is this, communication, translating ideas, creating a space where we can all come together, discuss things, reimagine, try things out. In the new design for living, we try things out. We're willing to change our minds. We're willing to use failure as a feedback. That's what it is. There's no real failure. It's just feedback. It just tells us if we hit the mark or not quite yet, or it worked, or maybe we need to rethink that. That's all part of the new way. Your own willingness to not be fixated and not be in a belief system that says, well, you made your bed, now lie in it. No, we don't do that anymore. We're willing to continually reconsider, reassess, because information is coming at us so quickly, and there's so much of it, that we have to be willing to change our minds. In the new design for living, changing your mind is a skill. It's a strength. In the old design model, it's seen as weakness. Look at how much time you spent. Look how much money. Now you're going to change your mind, right? This feeling of duty and obligation and failure if you had to change your mind. Of course, these are very generic comments I'm making, but they're true. In the new design model, that's not the way it is. We embrace changing our minds. We see it as a strength. We see it as a skill. We see it as necessary. Yeah, I felt that way yesterday, but now I have all this new information, and I'm going to change my mind about it because I can. Because, here's the other thing I realized over the weekend. In the new design model, you live from the inside out. In the old design model, you live from the outside in, right? Your sense of self, identity, power, it's all outside of us, communicating to us, and eventually telling us how it is we need to behave, say, think, dress, etc. But in the new design model, it's about internal alignment. It's about doing the deep work. And that's why I have this wonderful program called From Confusion to Clarity. Because a lot of people are responding to this opportunity to get back up on their feet as quickly as possible, to move through what I'm talking about as quickly as possible. You can find it at my website, CamilleConte.com. I've got a one and done for people who just need a couple of hours to finish the task of alignment, personal internal alignment. And I've got something called the Deep Dive, which allows me to walk with you over the course of a couple of months as you integrate your clarity in real time with someone like myself in a mentoring position, walking alongside you. I'm not a coach. I just see this as a mentoring opportunity to take some of the things I've been through and assist you as you're going through them. But that's in part where we're at. Internal alignment. Who do I want to be? Who am I becoming? If the old version of myself is over, the year of the snake, not an accident, we're in the year of the snake. There's so much shedding going on. The snake doesn't shed overnight. It's a process. We're shedding old beliefs. We're shedding old ways of being that had us operating out of duty and obligation and an external system that was never really designed for the highest and best outcome of ourselves. Now we get to ask, what do I value? What are the handful of principles upon which I live my life? What causes me to be in alignment, body, mind, and spirit, thought, word, and deed? And as you continue and begin to identify that, as you begin to talk about it, write it down, as you begin to really treat it like as a template for you, for how you want to live from the inside out, then decision-making becomes a whole different thing. Then all of a sudden, you're making decisions based on, does it keep me in alignment with who I am and who I'm becoming and where I'm going or not? You know, is it a decision that lights me up or makes me feel constricted? In the new design model, we use our bodies as well in decision-making, not just our minds and our hearts. What does it feel like when I put that decision in my body? Does it light me up? Do I feel light and expansive or heavy and constricted? That's information from the intelligence within you. It is really powerful, and I want to encourage you to give it a try, just to play around with it. If you've got a decision to make, put it in your body and feel into it, or just listen, or just be aware of how it feels. That's a preview. You know, that's a preview. When you go into a room, you get a sense of how it feels, and you say, wow, this is going to be great. Or sometimes you walk into something, you go, this doesn't quite feel right. Sometimes you still go in and then leave early, right? But sometimes you go, this is not in alignment. I can't do this. We're constantly putting things through the filter of alignment with who we are internally, who we are becoming, who we want to be in this world, how we want to live by our own sovereign definitions. Thanks so much for listening to the show today. I hope some of this has been helpful. All of my shows are at podbean.com under the new Design for Living. It's pretty cool because that used to be called the Confusion Experiment, named after my book. And so when you get to the Podbean channel, the new Design for Living show, you're not only going to see all the shows I've done since January 20th, but if you continue to scroll down a little bit, you're going to find the audio book of my book, The Confusion Experiment, which is pretty interesting and definitely the experience of the caterpillar into the chrysalis, into the butterfly. And you'll also find some other episodes that I did during COVID and in the years since then around change, confusion, uncertainty, and chaos. If you're going through any of those human experiences, I want to encourage you to perhaps check out that podcast and see if something there can offer you some medicine as you're leaving who you've been and are heading towards who you're about to become. Take super good care of yourself.